I'm muted. I'm muted, that's why I have no volume. Let's wait for me to come back. We're gonna do something a little different this morning. Set up stream. Gotta watch myself, wait for myself to realize that I'm muted. I'm muted. There we are. I'm muted, that's why I have no volume. Hear me? Let's wait for me to come back. We're gonna do something a little different. Let's try. I don't think I have any game volume coming through. At least not on the stream. Let's make sure. Oh, I hear it. I hear it, we're good. I hear it. Alright, let's check. Make sure. Video volume. Check video volume. I hear it. Can't really check this while I'm not live. It's kind of annoying. I hear it. We're going to cover the debate. We're going to go drive trucks and cover the debate. That's what we're doing this morning. Mute it back. We'll figure it out. Here's game audio. I can hear it here. Why can't I hear it there? I can hear it here. Why can't I hear it there? See if that helps. Why is it not catching my audio? See if that helps. Nope. Why is it not catching my audio? Well, darn it. I want to get this set up so we can hear it. Nope. It says it's got it going. I see the audio going up on this PC. Well, darn it. I want to get this up so you can hear it. Maybe that'll help. We'll see.
They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election. Their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just
We are going to say good morning now that we finally got that all squared away. Fucking soup sandwich over here. Sorry about that. You know, I'm not the news or anything, so whatever. Get over it. Drink your coffee and shut up. We're going to talk about this shit. Because people need to learn about some things. Maybe I can too. We can all learn together. Let's try that. Let's see. Headphone 2. Put you right here. Let's get a job set up, and we're going to go put this on. So good morning. Here we are. Today is the 12th of September. We just had our debate. First one. Our first debate again. Between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It went quite well, I'd say. For at least one of the people. One of the candidates. We'll get into that as we watch it. Let's find us a job real fast. Where are we at? Arizona? Something near me? Something near me? No. Where? There we go. Let's get us a long job. Something that gets us far. Sort by route length. Short. Higher. Ain't nothing longer than that here? What's up with that? Well, fine. Electronic components for rail export. Let's do it. Set the GIPS. Turn my truck on. Oh, it's already on. Whoops. Okay. We're going. Well, that job's right here. Okay, we'll get going. Get a job. Get trucking and get watching the show. Fuck that curb. Okay, let's pick up this job real fast. So Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. These are gonna be our new little deal, our new little show. We're watch some stuff on politics. Watch what's going on in the latest political arena while we work on some truck markets. Here we go. Ooh, to the border? Let's go to the border with some dry milk. Yeah, we'll stay in Arizona. We've already been that way. Take that job. Right. So this is our new little format. We'll do some truck driving, and we will talk about what's happening lately. Now, it doesn't matter what you support, because I think we'll just talk about whatever is on your mind when it comes to what's going on. I'll start talking about stuff, and we'll leave it up to anybody else that wants to leave a comment. Oop, did I miss? Did we miss? Oh, we missed. We missed. Alright, let's reset that. Let's reset that. That wasn't very good at resetting that. Alright, let's try this again. What are you doing? Get on there. Come on, you son of a gun. Get up on there. Let's go. Oh. I'm gonna have to lower my truck. Seriously? Alright, I gotta remember what my buttons were for lowering my truck. Put the brake on real quick. What was it? What buttons did I set to lower my truck? Let's find out. And then we'll start going on with this. Let's put the video on, I guess.
Weeks ago, President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential...
Wait for a second to get that going. Let's fix this real quick. Let's fix this real quick, and then we'll get that going. All right. Keys and buttons. Truck. Differential lock, lift drop axle. U. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's what it was. Rear suspension down, shift I. Okay. There we go. Let's try that again. Then we'll get talking about this video. There we go. Forward once. Trailer brake. Reverse. Make sure we're locked in. Yep. Okay. Got the job. Let's go. So, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris debated the other night. It was quite a mess. I would say I don't think either one of them really made a great case, if I want to be honest, to get more voters. I would say Kamala Harris showed at least who she is for now, as long as that's how it'll be. But I don't think we gained or lost a whole lot. I think the stakes pretty much stayed the same as they were. But let's go into what's going on here.
Debate starts right now.
Hello, David Muir.
This is an ABC News special.
By the way, I think David Muir, his nose is the shape of... His last name is the sound of the shape of his nose, if you know what I mean. Just kind of like Muir. I've always just thought that. Let's go.
The most consequential moment of this campaign, Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now.
Here it is.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Yay!
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate.
Now, if
We
you'll
want to welcome
we'll
viewers
start
watching
off with
on
saying...
ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments
What we'll
away
start
from
off by
taking
saying is
stage
watch the
in this
handshake.
Unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay
Watch the
Davis.
handshake right
Tonight's
away.
meeting could be the most consequential event
First,
for our campaigns over the
watch
election
how-
day, now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions.
I would like to
and
see
this is the clock. That's what
no
they'll be
muted
seeing.
mics.
2 minutes for rebuttals.
That would've been
and
great.
1 minute for follow-ups.
I'd have been fine with no
clarifications, or
muted
responses.
mics, but that's okay.
Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this
Check the
hall at the
volume.
National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome
Okay.
the candidates to the stage. Vice
So I can
President
speak up
Kamala
above
Harris
it a little
and
bit. I'm
President
not
Donald
super
Trump.
loud. Hello. Someone outside. I'm not super loud above it, and we can still hear it.
Kamala Harris.
Look at that, right there. Bam.
Thank you.
Came in, got the top.
Welcome
She
to
came in
you.
up high.
It's wonderful to have
She
you. It's an
cornered
honor
him,
to
came
have
in
you
up
here
high,
tonight.
Good
and just
evening.
dominated
We are
that
looking forward
situation,
to
I
a
think.
Spirited and thoughtful.
Definitely what she
So let's
needed
get
to do.
I want to begin tonight
with
with
who
the
Donald
issue that
Trump
voters
is.
repeatedly say is their number
Definitely
one
a thing
issue,
that she
and that
needed
is
to
the
do.
economy and the cost of
Aren't
living
we
in
ran? We
this
used to
country.
we were for like 3
Vice
lights.
President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, "Are you better off than you were?" 4
Now she
years
doesn't
ago?"
answer this question
When it
directly,
comes to
but I
the
think she
economy,
answers it
do
in
you
a
believe Americans are better
way
off
that
than they
makes
were
more
4 years
sense.
ago?
If that makes sense.
So I
Listen.
was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually
really
the
listen.
only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations,
Does
the
light ever
dreams
change?
of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people.
That's for sure.
We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young
That would be
families
nice.
can afford
We'll
to
see.
buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy
Oops.
clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give
Oop,
a
my differential's locked.
$50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy.
Pull over.
My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires
Unlock
and
the
big
differential.
corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's
out, people.
deficit.
Pulling
My
over.
opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax,
I have my blinkers
which
on.
would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
Yeah.
Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class
back off.
families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump.
First of all, I have no sales tax.
Here comes the first non-answer.
She knows that we're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation.
Whoops.
Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people
Might have a late
never
delivery
seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics.
What kind of jobs are those?
Also
What kind of jobs are
unions
those?
are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening.
What
You
kind
see
of
what's
jobs are
happening
those?
with
Tell me.
towns throughout the United States.
We
You
have
look
jobs
at
being taken
Springfield,
by
Ohio. You look at
other
Aurora
people, by
in
immigrants.
Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're
It doesn't
taking
make
over
any sense
buildings.
to actually
They're going
think
in
about that.
violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous.
I'd like to see
They're
any
at the
reports
highest level of criminality
of that happening.
and we have to get
That'd be
them
great.
out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do
Her
it
constant
again
looking
and
at Donald
even
Trump
better.
throughout the
We are
entire
gonna get to
debate.
immigration
Watch that
and border
too.
security during this
Notice
debate,
that
but
he doesn't
I would like
make.
to let Vice President Harris.
The only time he
respond
looked
on
at her, I
that.
think, the entire night was when
I
they
would love to.
met for the
Let's
handshake,
talk
and he
about
probably
what
didn't even make eye
Donald Trump
contact. I couldn't even
left
tell.
us.
I don't know if there's a
Donald
camera
Trump
angle that
left
shows
us the
whether or not he
worst
did, but
unemployment
I don't
since
think he
the
did.
Great Depression.
I'd
Donald
say he
Trump
probably did
left
not.
us the worst public health epidemic in a
But no,
century.
none of that was
Donald
really
Trump
true.
Left us
We have
the
increased
worst
numbers,
attack on our
but it's not like
democracy
it's
since
just
the
directly
Civil
people
War.
coming in like right
And
from a
what we
prison or
have
right from an
done is
insane
clean up
asylum, or
Donald
I'm
Trump's
sorry,
mess.
right from
we have
what
done
he
and
says,
what I intend to
right
do
from
is
mental
build on
institutions
what we know are the
and homes
aspirations
and
the
group homes
hopes
from
of the American people. But
that
I'm
need
going to tell
help,
you all in
that
this
need
debate
that
tonight,
assistance.
you're going to hear from the
Those
same
aren't
old tired
people that are
playbook.
coming over here in
A
droves.
bunch of lies, grievances, and
and
name
the people that
calling. What you're
are
going to hear
making these
tonight
stories or saying these, well, I
is a
guess not making these
detailed
stories, but
and
making them more
dangerous
public
plan
than
called
what they
Project 2025
normally are about
that the former
immigrants that are
president
from
intends on
these
implementing
places,
if he were
insane or
elected again.
mental institutions and
I believe very strongly
prisons
that the
that
American
are hurting people over
want
here.
a
That's
president
super
who
unfortunate
understands
when
the
that happens,
importance
and I know that
of bringing
happens, and I
us
know that
together,
happens
knowing we have so much more in common
in
than what
droves
separates
more,
us.
in multitudes
and I
more
pledge to you
with people
to
that
be a
live here
president for all
to people that live here.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
So yeah, those
Well, I
are
have nothing
stories
to
that
do, as
happen,
you know,
but
and
they
as she
are
knows
very
better
cherry
than anyone,
picked
I have nothing to do
and
with
very much
Project 2025.
not the reality
That's
of
out there. I haven't read
the immigrants
it.
that
I don't
are
want
coming
to read
here
it purposely.
to
I'm not going
seek
to read
asylum.
it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book.
I have
Everybody
nothing to
knows
do.
what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very
You can't finish
substantially
sentences.
and create a great economy.
drives me
like I did
bananas.
before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917. where
Right, and he
100
couldn't do
million
anything
people
about
died.
that,
Has there
but he
been
definitely
anything
could
like
have
it? We
helped
did a
get us out of
phenomenal
it
job with the
better and
pandemic.
work on that.
We handed them over a
His jobs
country
went down,
where
went
the
up,
economy and where the
unemployment
stock
went
market
down
was higher than it was
from
before
14
the
to
pandemic came in.
6.9 or something like
Nobody's
that.
ever seen anything like it.
That was great.
We made ventilators for the entire world. We
But
got gowns.
the jobs
we
that
got
were gone
masks,
weren't
we did
because
things
he
that
messed up.
nobody thought possible.
It was the
And people
pandemic.
give
The
me
jobs that
credit
were
for
coming back
rebuilding the
wasn't because
military.
he
They
did
give me
anything.
credit
It was
for a lot of
because
things,
the
but not
pandemic was
enough
over.
credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These
No
were
good job with
jobs
the pandemic.
Bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one.
I mean, it
that
makes
created
sense.
them.
When the
They know
pandemic's
it,
over,
and so
people
does
go back to
everybody
work.
else.
President
Unemployment's
Harris.
going to just naturally decrease.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you.
No.
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people.
I'd like to hear
I am
one.
offering what I
would
describe
argue
as an
what he
opportunity
does,
economy,
maybe for
and
what he does,
the
but he
best
doesn't say
economists
anything he
in our
does.
country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman
I need to
Sachs
find
has
a
said
place to sleep.
is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year
let's go sleep
would
now.
invite a recession.
Yeah, sure.
You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's true. I count the eyes. Count the eyes.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top
I
professors,
went
think
to
my
here.
plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan.
They
It's a
think
plan
I'm
that's
great.
going to bring up
He didn't say
our
anything about
worth,
you
our
being
value
great,
as a country.
or
It's
me,
gonna make
or anybody
people
else.
want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create
Immediately
a lot of
count the eyes.
good, solid money for our country. And just
Our
to finish
company?
off,
Yeah.
she
Our company
doesn't
is
have
what he
a
views.
plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes.
He read that this morning.
She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something.
Does she have one or not? Can I take a look at it, or can I?
Under tariffs, you
What do I
responded,
do?
and let's
What
drill
do I
down on this,
do?
Because your plan is what she calls
Pass
is
this
essentially a
motherfucker.
national
We do.
sales tax. Your proposal calls for
Whoa,
tariffs, as
whoa.
you pointed out here, on foreign imports
Look
across
out.
the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, proposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that the tariffs at that level costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher
Trying to get
prices
somewhere
on
to sleep.
gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're
Just
not
in the
going to have
dock.
higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever.
There it is.
China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in.
Well, because I would say the current
billions of
tariffs that
dollars,
we do
hundreds
have
of billions of dollars.
do work.
I
Like, we
had
don't want no
inflation,
tariffs.
virtually no inflation.
Like,
They had the
I mean, if we could
highest
live in a world where
inflation
there's no
perhaps in the
tariffs, that'd be
history of our
fucking great.
country, because I've never
Wonderful.
seen
But
a worse period
that's not the
of time.
reality.
People can't go
Being a
out and buy
realist, that's not the
cereal or
reality. We live in a
bacon
world
or
where tariffs
eggs or
sometimes
anything
are
else.
required.
The people
But
of
adding
our
new
country
tariffs and
are
tons more, like, that's not
absolutely dying with
what's
what
gonna
they've
help.
done. They've destroyed the economy.
And there
all
are
you have to
definitely
do is
more
look at a poll.
economists
The
that are
polls say
well-known
80
and credited that are
85
saying
even
that's not gonna
90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
What are we
Vice
doing,
President
guys?
Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what
My dude's gonna fall asleep.
The Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency,
Now they're
he
making-
ended up selling American
Now they've got
chips
two
to China to help
vehicle,
them
manufacturing
improve and
plants in China-
modernize their
or in
military.
Mexico.
Basically sold
China
us
does.
out. When a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st
Get off here,
century.
get to sleep.
Which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up
Better
having
downshift.
on the short end of the stick in terms of workers'
Come on,
rights.
asshole, go.
But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with
are you
COVID,
doing?
is he actually
If you don't have a stop
thanked
sign.
President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet.
Whoop.
Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the
Yeah.
origins of COVID.
President Trump will let you respond.
First of all, they bought
But he
the
didn't
chips
push
from
at all.
Taiwan. we hardly make chips anymore because of
And whether it came from a bat
philosophies
or a
like they
fucking
have,
fish
and
or
policies
the
like
ice and
I
they
don't
got
say
it
her
from
because
something,
she has no policy.
they could have been more
Everything that she
transparent
believed 3
about
years
what
ago
happened,
and
where,
4
and
years
when,
ago is out
and he
the
didn't
window.
push one bit.
She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to
He
send
wanted to
her a
make deals
MAGA
with
hat.
she,
She's gone to my
economic
philosophy,
deals
but
that allowed she to
she
make
ever got
money
elected,
and give
she
him
changed
power
it.
if he stayed in
And
office.
it
That's
will
what I think.
be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a
No.
Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught
More
her
name
well.
calling, more.
But when you look at what she's done to our country,
That's what you
and
wanna
when
vote
look
for.
at these millions and
You wanna vote for
millions
just a bunch of
people
name
that are
calling.
pouring
Oh,
into
shit,
our
I'm all
country
over it.
monthly,
Go home,
where
you're
it's,
drunk.
I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in, and just look at
Woo,
what
you
they're
got a
doing
curve
to our
here, buddy.
country.
Calm
They're
down.
criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals, and that's bad for our economy too. You know, you mentioned before
this
we'll
new
talk
place.
about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane.
pretty little rest
Almost
stop.
policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump. Thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to
Can I
the
rest
issue
here?
of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most
do I rest at?
pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be
Back to the
great
show.
for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so
We're gonna
many
be late
times.
on this, but it's okay.
Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing
Where we
that
at?
vote
It's
is
pretty.
because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not
Whoops.
the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
No.
And that's why I did that, because
When?
that predominates.
When has
because
a
they're
child been
radical.
murdered?
The
That's called
Democrats are
murder.
radical in that.
That's
And
called
her
murder.
Vice
I'd like to know when a
pick,
child's
which I
been
think was
murdered
a
after it's been
horrible
born
pick, by the way, for
by
our
a
country,
doctor.
because he is
That
really
person needs to be
adamant.
in jail.
But her vice presidential pick says abortion
think that's
in the
happening.
9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay.
No.
And that's not okay with me.
Show
Hence
me.
the vote. But what I did
The
is
people on
something
TV say
for
so.
52
But the people on
years they've been
TV,
trying to get Roe v. Wade
You know, the
into
people on
states.
TV tell me
And
things.
through the genius and heart and strength.
You know, Darth
of
Vader says
6
he's my
Supreme
father.
Court justices,
The people on TV,
we were
so I
able
believe
to
him.
do that. Now I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of
let's go.
Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they
Not
all
every.
wanted this issue
No.
to be brought back to the states where the people could vote.
Me?
And that's what happened.
Oops.
Now, Ohio,
Yeah.
the vote was somewhat
What?
liberal.
Me?
Kansas,
I don't want
the
that.
vote was somewhat liberal.
Not
much
every
more liberal
person.
than people would have thought.
Do you want
But
that?
each
I don't.
individual state
Maybe you
is
do.
voting. It's the
But I
vote
don't.
of the people now. It's not tied
So
up
why
in
not
the federal
everybody?
government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage
It's
to do
baseless
it.
nonsense
and the
ideas.
Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald
Checking
Trump
volume again.
hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would
Probably should
undo the
change the
protections
stream
of Roe
name.
v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended.
Can I get it on
and
my-
now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
Can I do that?
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision
Can't
about
change
what
it from
happens
here.
to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government
We will
and Donald Trump certainly should
do it from my
not be
phone.
telling a woman what to do
I wanna change the
with
stream name.
her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they
There's
might
some other
go to
news being
jail,
covered.
and she's bleeding out in a car in
in
the parking lot. She
California,
didn't want
them
that.
going
Her
a
husband
little
didn't
bit.
want
They
that.
probably,
A 12
if you're from
or
there, you probably don't
13-year-old
give a shit.
survivor of
But
incest
that's okay.
being
All right, let's
forced to
go.
carry a pregnancy
Open
to
YouTube.
term. They don't want
Skadoop.
that.
Let's get my,
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes
want
a
an
bill
NFL Sunday ticket.
to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade,
let's put
as
it on
President
me.
of the United States, I will proudly sign it
account.
into
Two
law.
pals.
But understand,
How do I do
if
studio
Donald
from my
Trump were
phone?
to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national
see, where do we
abortion,
go?
a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own
videos.
body, should not be made by the government.
Live.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten
I don't
what
have a way to
everybody
edit my
wanted.
video from my phone.
Democrats,
You can't edit YouTube?
Republicans, and
YouTube.
everybody else, and every
Listen,
legal
YouTube.
scholar wanted it to be brought
listening to
back into
stuff.
the
Pause that. Listen. We need to get a handle on this. I can't get to my studio and edit my video from here. I don't have a studio. Your videos, your clips, your movies. What the flip, YouTube? We need to do that. We need to get going on that. Can I open up another window and do it from there? Will it mess up my other video? No? Okay. We're doing that real quick. 2 seconds while I swap my stuff out. Oh, whoops. I can't do that from there. From this one? Super Pale YouTube channel. Is it logged into me? Nope. Son of a crap. Okay. So new window. YouTube. Make sure it didn't switch. Okay. There's my studio. Let's change this title real quick. Sorry about this. Actually, you know what? Look at this. Harris. Trump debate. We're going to call it first debate because I think it's going to be another one. Okay, we cover the first presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former president, I guess we'll call him, Donald Trump. Courtesy of ABC News. There. Talk Live. There we go. Make that the title. A little more appealing. How about that? How about that? Okay, now we gotta go back and listen to what they were just saying. Because we missed it. Alright. grab this.
The states, and the states are voting. And
Sorry, I
they
gotta
make
go back. I
great
missed
courage
it.
in doing it. And I give tremendous are voting on it. So the Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country.
That it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support
Her vice
the 6-week
presidential pick was
ban.
amazing, by the
Vice
way.
President Harris says that women
Love that
shouldn't
guy.
trust you on
Would
the
love to
issue
meet Tim
of
Walz. He
abortion
seems like
because
an amazing
you've
fella.
changed your position so many times.
Seems like a sweet
Therefore,
man.
Why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor.
So he's
of West
saying that
Virginia,
because
the previous governor
babies
of West
are being
Virginia,
killed,
not the
that's
current
why he
governor, is
wants
doing
to
an excellent job. But the governor
vote
before, he said
for-
the baby
what?
will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And
Anybody
that's why
smell
I did
almonds?
that, because that
let's
predominates.
go.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion
He seems
in the
normal
9th
as
month
fuck.
is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth.
He can
So
grocery shop
execution,
like a
no longer
person can.
abortion, because the baby is born is okay, and that's not okay with me.
I would be doing this
Hence
to
the
Kamala
vote.
if
But
there
what
was
I
stuff
did
to
is
do it to.
something
Trust me. If she
for
does something I can do this
52
to, I will.
years
I
they've been
promise.
trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states, and through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people
Like I
could
said,
vote.
no.
And that's what happened.
Sorry we were playing it, but I missed
now,
it.
Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now.
So it's up
not
to
tied up in the
everybody
federal
else what a
government.
woman does.
I
So
did
he
a great
doesn't want to
service
make
in
it up
doing
to the
It took
government,
courage to do
the
it.
big
And
government. He just
Supreme
wants it
Court
up
had
to
great
all the
courage in
people
doing
that
it.
don't
And I give tremendous
support
credit to
abortion
those 6
to be
justices.
oops.
There is no state in
Come
this
on, go.
country where it is legal to
I
kill
know
a
it.
baby.
They want it. He wants it to be up to all the
Vice President,
people
I want to get your response to
who
that.
have no
Well, as I
relation
said,
to
you're
the
gonna hear a
woman
bunch of lies,
or the family
and that's not actually a surprising fact.
to make the decision of what
Let's
she gets
understand
to
how we
do
got here.
with her body.
Donald Trump
I don't think so.
hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides
And how is that
prison for
okay to say
life.
that's what I support?
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
Right.
And
100%.
one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
So I believe that happened.
Her husband didn't want that.
I don't believe pets are
12
being
or
eaten, but I believe
13-year-old
that happened.
Survivor of incest, being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Can you imagine?
People believe that certain freedoms, in particular particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
There she goes again.
How
It's
pretty
a
Arizona
lie.
is.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans,
Too
and
fast.
everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52
A little time
years,
for
this
what?
issue
Everything to be banned?
has torn our country apart, and they wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban,
Dude.
no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Yeah, taken over by the states. 'Cause that's there should be nobody.
Because again,
It should be the woman and her
number one,
doctor
she
and her
said she'll go
family,
back to Congress, she'll
or
never get
whoever
the
she
vote. It's
decides.
impossible for her to get the vote.
Isn't
Especially
if
now
nobody
with
is
the
involved in that
50-50,
conversation, then it's up to her.
essentially
And that's up to her.
50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think
no, it's working.
probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students
Dude.
got taunted with
Fucking
this
slam
whole
your brakes
thing
on in
about
front of
this
me.
whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that,
What?
that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, Jen
Yeah, yes or no?
Vance, has said that you would veto it if you did come to your desk.
Well, I did discuss it with JD, in all fairness. JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have
what?
to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she
Some
says
got
about
'em,
going to Congress.
and it's
Wonderful.
working.
Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of
And a lot of the
Congress
problem
out
is
of
that
the
some
federal
people didn't
government.
start paying
And
their
we did
loans because they had
something
them
that everybody
deferred because
said
we
couldn't
can't
be
fucking
done. And
afford
now
that.
you have a vote of
So
the
when you have a
people on
$70,000
abortion.
loan
And
that you're
Vice
having
President
deferred,
Harris, I wanna give you your time
so you
to
don't
respond,
have to
but I do
start it
wanna
yet
ask,
until you can
would
start
you
affording
support
it.
any
Those loans
restrictions
didn't
on a
count.
woman's right to
So a lot of
abortion?
people didn't get paid off
absolutely
because of that. So
support
that would be great if you can get those
reinstating
deferred
protections of
loans
Roe v. Wade.
paid off.
And as you
So
rightly
the only thing he's
mentioned,
right about, I'll say, is that
nowhere
right there.
in America is a woman
some people are, and
carrying
it's
a
working.
pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of
Yeah.
America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
And not for a vacation, not
Barely
for fun.
can afford to do
Not
it,
even for
and
a
what
business
you
trip
are
for work.
putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans
Whoa.
believe in a woman's right to make decisions
Okay.
about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have to
you.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie.
No.
I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader.
How do I
In
go
fact,
that way?
When they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts,
I really have to do
The
this.
people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Right.
Wade,
Answer the question,
you
would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and
I
probably
gotta
have
get
to
over there.
birth.
Fuck.
Just look at the former
Move.
governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country.
What?
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know
That was great.
illegal
Answer
border
the question.
crossings
Just
reached
answer the
a
damn
record
question,
high
guy.
in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this
need a
stage
shifter.
who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500
getting
more border
ridiculous.
agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected
I wanna get
by
through
the
all
surge
this.
of
Why
fentanyl
can't I?
in our country.
Now
That
we're going
bill
through it. Fuck it.
would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking
We're
in
going through
guns,
it.
drugs, and human
We
beings.
did it.
But you know what happened to that
All right.
bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the
Cancel.
bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time
That'd have been a good
where
problem to
the
fix.
people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand.
Are we serious
But
again
what
with
we
this?
have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell
can't
you
go
something,
either way.
He's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
We just watched that
And
happen.
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you
It won't let me get off
to
there,
attend
and
one
it's
of
blocked
Donald Trump's
there.
rallies, because it's a really interesting
How do we
thing
get
to
out of
watch.
here?
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
We're going
He'll
around.
talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is
Going
you.
around it.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you
Yeah, he never will.
deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your
That
response.
Well, I would
construction.
like to respond.
Let me just ask, though,
So
why
unfair.
did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board.
Yeah.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's
Plenty of people
busing them
do.
in and paying them to be there.
No.
And then showing them in a different light.
How many people
So
can you pay?
She can't talk about
How
that.
much
People
money
don't
would it
leave
take
my
to pay that
rallies.
many people
The
to show
biggest
up?
Rallies, the most incredible rallies.
'Cause
in
there are
history
lots of people at
politics.
her rallies.
That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. Not going to be Aurora or
Nothing happened.
Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Yeah, he's trying to
In
say they won't say it out
Springfield,
loud.
They're eating the dogs.
No.
The
Ha!
people that came in, they're eating the cats.
So ridiculous.
They're eating the pets of the people.
So, look
that
at her
live
laugh. Look at
there.
her laugh.
And
I
this
would
is
too.
What's happening in
That's
our country,
ridiculous.
and it's a shame.
The people on the
As
TV
far
said
as
so.
Rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase: make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here.
That's
you
so
bring up
insane.
Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city
Get him,
manager
David.
there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims.
I'll
of
call
pets
him up
being
now and
harmed,
ask him myself.
injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
all
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here,
But-
this is the
but I see people on
said
television,
my dog was
David.
taken and used for food. So maybe he said
What a
that, and
child.
maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond.
We'll find out. Okay.
Talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the
Look at that face.
endorsement
All he does is scowl,
of
though.
200 Republicans.
Like, even if you
who
support
have formally worked with President
some of the
Bush,
stuff he
Mitt
does,
Romney,
he's just
and
not
John McCain,
there.
including the endorsement
just
of
out of it.
former Vice
He's
President Dick Cheney
just
and Congressmember
A shell
Liz
of what he
Cheney.
was before.
And if
To
you
say that
wanna
he's any
really
kind of
know
person you'd vote for
the
because of who
inside
he was
track
now
on
is
who
that's not.
the
I
former
can't see that.
president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit.
Dangerous,
His former
unfit.
Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And
I'd like to
when
see
we
those reports,
listen
though, too, from
to
those
this
people saying
kind of
those
rhetoric,
things.
when the issues
That would be really
affect
important
the
if that's
American
true to be
people
saying out
are
loud.
not being addressed. I think the choice is clear in this election.
If there are
President Trump will
reports,
give you a
show
quick
me.
minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having
Because
to do
their
with
people worked
Afghanistan
out.
and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
know, there's a yes
So
and a no to that
when somebody
also.
does a bad job,
There's
I fire 'em.
probably no
And you
good
take a
way.
guy like
Yes, he's
Esper,
right.
he
That was
no
done
good, I
really
fired him,
badly
so he writes a book. Another one writes
with
a
the
book.
build-up,
Because with
but
me, they can write books.
knowing how
Nobody else can.
situations are over there,
But they have
I don't
done
think there was
such
a way to do it
poor
without.
job, and they never
Like, it
fire
just had to be-
anybody.
just pull the
Look at
Band-Aid.
the economy. Look
That
at
shit
the
had to be ripped
inflation.
off.
They didn't fire
Should have been
any of
ripped
their
off years
economists.
ago.
They have the same people.
I
It's a
served,
good
and I
way
think
not to
that.
have books written about you.
I
But
understand
just
the
to
contingency
finish,
we had
I
to
got
keep
more
there,
votes
but
than any
shoot.
Republican in history by far.
we were
In
not
fact,
doing
I
great
got
by
more
the people
votes
there.
than any president, sitting
Most of the time.
president in history by far.
If we were, I would say stay.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get
And the
back
only
to
thing
the
that did happen
deportation,
that we left is
proposal
now Taliban took
that the
back
Vice
over,
President
which
has
is
reacted
terrible.
to
So
as well. President Trump,
There was no
you call
good
this
way
the largest
to
domestic
figure that shit out.
deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport
local
11
police.
million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of
getting
criminals.
off here.
They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people
When?
to come in, drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States.
I mean, people
and
come in here
told
normally,
by
legally,
their
that are
countries,
like that. Oops.
Venezuela, don't ever come back, or we're going
I mean,
to
people
kill you.
travel
You know
normally
that
from other
crime in
countries like
Venezuela
Spain,
and crime in countries all over
Australia,
the world
and
is way down.
all
You know
over the
why?
place.
Because they've taken their criminals off the
that break
street
laws
and they've
and
given
are-
them to
are
her
horrible
to put into our
criminals.
country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's
What he
never
means
been
by that
anything
is
done
destroying
like
the
this
white
at all.
nation,
They've destroyed
the white
fabric
idea, the
of our
white
country.
principle of like,
Millions of
we're the
people
ones that are
let
supposed to be in
and all over the
charge,
world.
and it's supposed to be all
Crime
us,
is
and we
down
just kind of
all over the
allow
world except here.
people that don't
Crime
look
here
like
is
us to
up
hang
through
out in the
roof,
United States. That's
despite
not
their
what it is at all.
fraudulent statements that they
But
make.
that's what he
Crime in
means
this
by
country
that.
is through the roof. And we have a new
That's
form
what a lot of
crime.
people
It's
mean by
called
that, that follow
migrant
him,
crime.
I think.
And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump,
And when
as
they
you
say
know, the
they're
FBI says
destroying the
overall
nation,
violent
stuff like
crime
that,
is
it's
coming down in this country.
it's
But
the
excuse me,
idea
The
that,
FBI defrauded-
you know, they have to push a
defrauding
button to
statements.
get
They
English on their
didn't
phone
include the worst cities.
to choose a
They
language
didn't
instead of
include
hearing
the cities
Spanish
with
or
the
something
worst
like that.
crime. It was a
Or they're mad about a
fraud.
Spanish
Just
commercial
like
on
number
their
of
YouTube
818,000
feed.
jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond.
And I've heard people talk with that to my face in my family.
Coming
It
from
sucks.
someone who has been prosecuted prosecuted
So I know that's the idea, the
for
mentality.
national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is
Isn't
in
that
November
ironic?
at
He's
his
the only
own
one
criminal
found guilty or
sentencing.
being
And let's be clear,
convicted
where
of,
each person
attempting to be
stands
convicted of,
on the issue of what is important about
accused of
respect for the rule of
actual
law
election
and
fraud,
respect for law
even though that's what he
enforcement.
claims
The former
everything
Vice President called for
that happened to
defunding
him.
federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and
Oh, give me a
address
ticket.
the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the
And then he
Attorney
immediately
General
talks
of New
about
York and
weaponizing
the DA in New York. Every
people,
one of those cases,
weaponizing the
and
DOJ
then
to go
they
after
say, "Oh,
who
he
knows,
was-
tons
he's a
of people
criminal." They're the
that
ones
don't
that
agree with him.
made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found
Biden.
essentially guilty on the documents case.
No, he
And
was
what
not
happened in my
essentially
documents
guilty.
case? They said, "Oh, that's the toughest of them all." A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
Yeah.
Someone who has openly
only one that's accused
expressed
of doing it.
disdain
Only
for
one accused
members
of
our
fraud in the
military.
election. The only
Understand
one accused
what it would mean
of
if Donald Trump were back in the White
weaponizing.
House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
we gotta
This is the
continue.
one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a
Not you.
bullet to the head
You are.
because of the
You're a
things that they
towel.
say about me.
That's like
They
his
talk
argument.
about democracy.
You
I'm
are.
a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia,
See?
Russia
There's no you.
We do have a lot to
That
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You
Where we at?
supported
Why are we not?
decriminalizing border
Good.
crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss
Oh,
every
come on.
one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania.
Struggling here.
I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And
Why
in
is it
fact,
not lining up?
I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce
not
our reliance on foreign
going back
oil.
far enough.
We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production
Maybe I'm
in
not going back
history
far enough.
because of an approach
Yeah.
that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my
We've been
values,
producing
let me
more and
tell
more
you, I
oil
grew up
every
a
year,
middle-class kid
consistently
raised by a
for,
hardworking
ever.
mother who
Like, I don't know.
worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. the values I bring to the importance of homeownership.
Don't know where we're coming
knowing
from
not
when it comes.
everybody got
We're like, we need more oil. We need more
$400 million
energy for
on a
us. We
silver
need more
platter
things
and
for
then
us.
filed
We
bankruptcy
make
6
plenty.
times
And it
is a
doesn't even
value
really
that
work
I
that
bring
way
to my
when it
work
comes down to
to
how
say we are going
oil
to
works. It
work
doesn't
with
just
the
come out of
private
our
sector and
ground and
home
go into
builders
our
to
car. It
increase
just there's a
3
whole
million
process
homes,
behind
increase
that
by
that's
3
not
million homes by the end of my
anything
first
that
term.
Trump
My
wants to
work
imagine and
that
make
is
you
related
believe.
to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and
What do we got?
Medicare is based on long-standing work
cool.
that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed.
Waste paper, wheel
And
loader,
what is
large
important is
tubes.
that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is
What's
about
heavy?
lifting people up and not beating people down. And name
What am I made for? I need to go.
The true
I need to go
measure
fix
of
my
the
truck.
leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions.
Right.
And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking,
Is there a
she's
truck
been against
place?
it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at
Gas.
least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
Wow.
Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota.
Hey, got
wanted
her.
to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this.
What?
She wants to confiscate your guns.
Let's say
and
that
she
again.
will never allow fracking
Let's say
in
that again.
Pennsylvania.
Let's do that one more time.
If she won the now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis,
Let's hear that
she went
again.
out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a
Transgender
radical
operations
left
on illegal
liberal
aliens
that would do this.
that are
She
in
wants to
prison. Why
confiscate
would
your
you
guns, and she
fucking
will
do
never
that
allow
anyway?
fracking in Pennsylvania.
Like, what
If
is
she won
happening
the
here?
election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish,
We're talking
one
about
thing,
fracking,
so
and we're going
important in
from
my
fracking
opinion.
oil production
So
to
I got the oil business
wanting to do
going like
transgender
nobody's ever
operations
done
on
before.
illegal aliens
They
in
took-
prison.
When they took over, they got rid
Tell me
of
what
it,
the
started
benefit of
getting
that
rid
is.
And the
If that's what we're
prices were
talking about
going
here.
up the roof.
I need coffee
they
and a break.
immediately
Let's
let
take
these
a
guys
minute.
go to where they were.
Let's take a minute.
I would have
Coffee and a
been
break. Put up
5
the BRB
times,
screen.
4 times, 5 times higher because you're
I
talking about
need
3.5
a bit
years
of a
ago.
break for a minute. Let's do this. Let's get rid of the coming, starting soon. Boop. And I will leave it on here. We'll leave it on here. We'll be right back. I need a quick little break. Gotta get coffee. Gotta grab some stuff. Need more coffee. Oh, I guess I could type that in. Let's type it in. Okay. It's mute the mic. Alright, we're back. We're back at this. Quick little safety meeting. Took me a couple minutes. Sorry about that. Let's get back to this. We are watching the Trump and Harris debate. Former President Donald Trump, the Vice President currently, Kamala Harris. And we are also driving trucks and doing jobs. Because I can't just sit here and watch the news without doing something else. Because that's really mind-numbing and makes you sad. So we're going to play games while watching the news. Welcome back, welcome back. Let's go to the video.
They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they
we'll have to eventually
to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. But they take
the science will figure that out.
500 acres of desert soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment, as she
We're out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Blah, 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 blah.
We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which
find somewhere to
of course,
fix
we
my
all
truck.
know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never,
There's a lot
shot
to say
her.
about that.
It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been
I will
treated
say
so badly.
that he did try to make it seem
all the people
like
that are pouring into our country
he wanted
and killing
people to go home
that she
peacefully.
allowed to
I
pour
can
in?
admit
She
that.
was the border czar. Remember
He did say that.
She was the border czar. She doesn't want
But
to
he
be
also
called
said the
border
other
czar because
things
she's
that you
embarrassed
can't
by the
avoid.
border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised
He did
you're
not
talking
get
about
on
the border
the
yet."
camera and
That's
just say,
because she knows
this
what a
is
bad
not what
job
we
they've
do.
done. What
Go
about those
home.
people? What are they going to be
Everybody be
prosecuted?
peaceful.
When are
Nobody
these
stand
people
by.
from countries all over
Everybody
the world,
just
not
go
South
home
America.
and stop the
They're coming in
violence.
from all over the world, David.
It was
all
an
over the
easy
world.
statement to make,
And
and
crime
he did
rates
not
are
do
down
that.
all over the world because of it.
But let me just
one
ask
of those, David, one of those people are going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis is going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle. They took over a big.
You know, if they
percentage
caught
of the
people
city
that
of
were
Seattle.
doing
When are
destruction
those people
property
gonna
or
be
burning stuff, I'm
prosecuted?
sure they got
But let me just
persecuted.
ask
You might ask her that
Or
question.
You were the
prosecuted.
president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I
Yes or
showed
no?
up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be
It's an
big.
easy question.
I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
Even for a strong man,
and
it's
the mayor
yes.
put it back in writing.
Yes,
as you know.
or no,
I
there's
said,
nothing I regret.
This is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it.
Even if
And
he
again,
wanted to
it
do that,
wasn't done by me,
that
it
would
was
have been
done
the easy
by
answer.
others.
But no, he can't
I
even
said,
do that.
I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand.
And that's what
for
this
our
election's about.
democracy, to
I really
stand
don't
for
like.
rule of law,
It should be
and
policy.
to
It should
end
be
the
economics.
chaos,
It should be
and to
immigration.
end
It should be
the approach
all
that
of those
is
things.
about
But
attacking the
right now, it's
foundations
just
of our
only about.
democracy
I don't care
because
who
you don't like the outcome.
Donald Trump is
And
going
be
against.
clear
At this moment,
on that
it's
point.
about we need to
Donald
get back
Trump,
to
the
regular
candidate,
presidency
has said in
debates,
this
regular
election there
presidency
will be a
campaigns,
bloodbath.
regular
If
presidents.
this and the outcome of this
that
election
don't do
is
what
not
Donald
to
Trump
his
did.
liking, let's turn the page on this.
If you want to hear my opinion on it, he definitely was trying to become a dictator, and he would have suspended rules, not the whole Constitution, but rules in the Constitution in order to
Was a different term,
make
and
it difficult
was a term that
for people
related
to stop him
energy
from
because
doing
they've
things he wants to
destroyed our energy
do, or
business.
make
That
it
was
legal
where
for him to do
bloodbath was.
things he'd like to
Also,
do.
on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked.
He would do
Laura
exactly
Ingalls,
what
Sean Hannity,
Putin and Viktor
Jesse,
Orban
all of these
and
people,
all of those
they
strong
covered
leaders
it.
do.
If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every
Make up
newspaper,
reasons to
but they
stop
still
things
bring
from
it up, just
happening to
like
keep
they
himself in
bring
power.
2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this.
They
you
declare an
talk
emergency
about
on
the
immigration,
Why are
and then
we
somehow there
allowing
can't be an
these
election
millions
because
of people to come
it's
through
too
on the
dangerous
southern
because
border?
of all the
How come she's not
immigration.
doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and
Exactly
I
what
would
it'd
be
be.
very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the
border
right
is
to do
not
it. The
open.
President of the
You
United
can't
States,
just
you'll
freely
get him out of
cross.
bed,
It's illegal.
you
That's
wake
why
him
we
up at 4 o'clock
call
in
them
the
illegal
afternoon, you
aliens
say,
in the
"Come on,
first place."
Come on down to the office. Let's sign a
So
bill.
it's not
If
open.
If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people
It's
are
not
killing
how that
many
works.
people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on. this
Whoa, what are you
issue
stopping for, guy?
Because it really brings us this into focus. Truth
Guy?
in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won. Many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little
prepared.
bit short.
I said that?
Are you now?
Did I say
acknowledging
that? Yeah, you
lost in
did.
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we
So he
lost
doesn't
by a
acknowledge
whisker.
it, but he
That was
did it
said
sarcastically.
Look,
Come on.
there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
He
and
knows
they
he
should have sent
lost.
it back to the legislatures for
people
approval.
that are watching
I got
him,
almost
that follow
75
him,
million
knows he
votes, the
lost.
most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it.
So we're
And
set
we
up
should
for
just point
heavy.
out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United
It's a
States
little more normal,
doesn't have
Carville.
standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show
yeah, we'll
you
keep this.
Georgia, and I'll show
got a
you
heavy job.
Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you.
We'll
We
keep
have
this.
so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have
problem
a
is you're full of old
nation
news.
in decline, and they have put it into
That's our
decline.
issue with you right now,
We
is
have
you
a
are old
nation
news
that is
that won't
dying,
go away.
David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just
get a heavy
recently.
load.
He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials,
way
he
up
says will
there.
be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
All right, let's get a
Donald
heavy
Trump
load
was
going back
fired
into
by 81 million
California.
people.
Let's go to
So
Nevada.
let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States
get it.
who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and
Right here
fair
next to it?
election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Who's this job?
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you.
Here he
and they
goes.
say you're a disgrace.
A disgrace.
And when you then
disgrace.
talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what
Things
over and
you
over
just
again
said.
are court cases you have lost because you did in fact
Could've been
lose
easy just to
that
say that.
election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the
Oh,
temperament
that's my current job.
or the ability to not be
Oh.
confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say
Whoops.
about world
Can I
leaders.
get out here? No.
Viktor Orban, one
Damn
of the
it.
most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person. He's smart.
He's
Prime
an evil
Minister of
person
Hungary.
that does things
They said,
badly. That's why
is the
people
whole
listen to
world
him.
blowing up. 3 years ago, it wasn't.
Why does
is
that
it
mark
blowing
you
up?
as a good leader in
He
your
said
eyes, man?
because
You got a
need
serious problem
Trump
with figuring
back
out
as
who's
president.
good,
They were
who does
afraid of
things the
him.
right
China
way.
was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Where's my job
and
at?
Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our
Okay, I
country.
gotta go up there and
He
get it.
ended that.
All right.
But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
What was he going to do,
Viktor
blow him up?
Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy.
Come on, let me
He got
go.
14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't
Oh,
stand
come
her.
on.
But
Mr.
he got
President. 14
million votes. They threw
See,
him
it's just
out.
sad that
She
he has
got
to resort to
0
that kind of
votes.
stuff.
And
You want
when
a
she
child
ran,
for your president?
She was the first one to leave because she failed.
can't stand
and
that.
now she's running. I don't
Grow up.
understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President.
with it because
Your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President
Israel needs to
Harris
stop
in
blowing up
December
Gaza.
said, quote, Israel has
Put
a right
that
to
out there right
defend
now,
itself, but you
at the
added,
top of the
quote,
fucking hour.
It matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered
Yeah, terrible.
1,200 Israelis.
Obviously.
Many of them young people who were
Easy to
simply
say.
attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely,
That's not the problem
I
here.
said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters.
Yes.
Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children,
Far too many. Oh my
mothers.
God.
What we
I thought he
know
would
is
stop at
that
3 times the
this
amount
war
of
must
Israelis that
end.
died, but no, he's at
It
10
must
times the
win
amount, if
end
not way more.
immediately, And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal.
30
and we
times
need
the amount, maybe, who
hostages
knows?
out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a
That's just pandering to the
where we can rebuild
right, though,
Gaza,
on
where the Palestinians
on the warmongering,
have
like,
security,
we don't need to do
self-determination,
that.
and the dignity they so
No.
rightfully deserve.
We can help Israel defend themselves against other countries, and we already do that. We do not need to give them more money to attack Gaza. The Iron Dome is plenty enough.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president,
And that's ridiculous,
Russia
too.
would have never, ever. I know Putin very well. He would have never, and there was no threat.
So this
of
is
it
where
either,
I'll
by the
fault
way, for
Biden
4
Harris,
years.
is they
Have
won't
gone
do
into
anything about
Ukraine
Israel
and killed
blowing up
millions of people when you added up.
however
Far
many
worse than
Gaza
people understand what's going on over there.
civilians they want to.
But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even
Her
meet
husband's Jewish.
with Netanyahu when he went to Congress.
Once again,
to make
another
a very
completely
important
made-up
speech.
crazy thing.
She refused to be there because she was at a sorority
Makes no
party
sense.
of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's
Discover
president,
this
I
place.
believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way,
Sleep.
she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off
Come on,
all the
let's go, guys.
sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of
Yeah, they did.
terror. And they
They
are
had
spheres
terror.
of terror.
Terror.
Horrible terror. They had no money.
Terror.
It was a big story.
Horrible
You
terror,
know,
guys.
You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're
Why is my
spreading that money
hazards
around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would
This
have
guy.
never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with
Why are my
Ukraine
hazards on?
and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
My hazards are stuck. I
That's
don't know why.
absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract
Hazards are stuck on.
from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security.
Yeah,
and
he
foreign
can't just
policy.
stop
It is
things
well
from
known
happening.
that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin
Why are my
that
hazards
he
stuck on?
can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It
My
is
hazards
well
are stuck
known
on.
he
I can't figure out why.
exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with
Where's that
flattery
push?
and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of
Come on, hazards stuck
upholding
on.
and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is
can't get it to
absolutely
turn off.
incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak
Hold on a
and
second.
incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world, going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
It's not off. All right, well, hopefully this can come back after the break. Let's fix this.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this. Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives.
That's not an answer.
Uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore.
That's not how it works.
Maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening.
Right, and they don't do anything for you because you're not an actual dictator. You're just trying to be. To NATO. Like, that doesn't work.
Forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win,
how would you do that? Because that's an insane claim.
I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left,
and that implies you would not allow Putin to have any land. That would give everything back to Zelensky. That's what I'm wondering.
Him building up soldiers, he did it after I left.
That needed to be the follow-up.
He must be negotiating.
So all land goes back to Ukraine, including Crimea, that Putin took in 2014. And nobody freaking noticed.
He had no idea how to stop it, and now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David.
Really?
We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president?
Just fixed my truck.
We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done. Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human
jacked up the front of my truck. Awesome.
From being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir? And would it be any different from what we're seeing with President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against
I know, right? Wake up. Wake up, Trump.
The reason that Donald
Wake
Trump
up, Don.
says that this war would be over
Get a
within
new
24
race,
hours
buddy.
is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial
if you don't know,
integrity.
that's what's happening.
And
Russia
I met with President Zelensky.
took
I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later,
Ukraine.
I went to NATO's eastern
Like
flank,
old school invasion.
to Poland and
This is
Romania.
mine now because I'm here.
And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about
like if
Ukraine.
it wasn't for the Biden campaign so far,
the European allies and our NATO
it sucks both ways.
Are so thankful
if it wasn't for the Biden campaign, we'd have a lot of
president,
living Palestinians. And if it wasn't for the Biden campaign, we'd have a lot more dead Ukrainians.
The world has
And
ever known,
Putin
which
sitting
is
in
NATO.
Kiev. So
And what we have done
that's the
to
realist
preserve
situation.
the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would
That won a lot of people right there.
for the sake of
that right there, I guess I will say,
and
if
what
she did
you
win
think is a
anybody,
friendship
that was it
with
right there.
What is known to be a
That was the
dictator
moment.
who would eat you for lunch.
That was the
President
moment.
Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow.
How?
Much happier.
Why
than
would he
is
have
right
done
now.
that?
But eventually,
He wouldn't have done that
he's
no
got
matter
a
who
thing
was
that
president. He was
other
going to do what he was
people
going
don't
to
have.
do.
He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got
It's up to
nuclear
us to
weapons.
get
Nobody ever
Ukraine
thinks
into
about
NATO
that.
after they take care of their
And
government
eventually,
issues.
Maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does.
They get the
have
corruption out.
something we
They
don't
get their
even
shit
like to
squared
talk
away.
about.
They get to NATO
Nobody
where they
likes to
belong.
talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
Zelensky
Because everything
eventually
they
will
said
make
was
Ukraine
weak
on the
and
world
stupid.
stage like
They
any
said
other
the wrong
European
thing.
nation.
That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something.
Don't hit me.
She
Don't hit
is
me.
a horrible
Don't hit me.
negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon
hit
as
me.
they left, Putin
Asshole.
did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
No.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is, it has been about standing as America
But did you meet with
always
Putin?
should,
Come on, answer.
as a leader,
Answer the fucking
upholding
question.
international rules and norms,
Answer the
as
question.
a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy.
Yeah.
And that is very much what is
That's
at
true, but
stake
didn't
here.
answer the question.
President of the United States is commander-in-chief.
Never met with Putin.
And the
She's
American
fine,
people
but she won't
have
admit
a
that.
right to
Don't know
rely
why.
on a president who understands the significance
That would have been a better
of
answer. No,
America's
I have
role
not met
and
with
responsibility
President Putin.
in terms of ensuring that there is stability.
Now she's
and
joining Trump's
ensuring we
camp of not
stand
answering
up
shit.
for our principles and not sell them for the
You're welcome to hold her
benefit
account for that.
of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin.
And see,
I do
that's
wanna
where I
talk about
get upset right
Afghanistan.
there. They
Came
didn't
up
even
in
press her
the
on
first
that.
hour of this
They did
debate.
press Trump on a lot of stuff,
I
and
wanna
that's where
move
I
on
will
to
side with
Afghanistan.
Trump on this
Said
situation.
Trump did the most
Sorry, I gotta say
amazing
it, but
thing I've ever seen. He got these countries,
they did not press her on
the
that, and they
28
should have.
countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and
Where's
on
that last
NATO.
job at?
I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour
Let's
of
go
the
there.
debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment
Let's
today
go
on
north.
Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility
at?
in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And
Is
as
this
a
open?
result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today,
Doesn't open.
there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000
And I'll admit, when I
terrorists,
first
Taliban
heard
terrorists
Trump coming in and he did his
get
thing
this,
as
no, get
president,
this.
I went, oh,
And
maybe
the
he's going to
president
bring
at
these
the
people on the
time
world stage. Maybe he'll
invited
get
the Taliban
some
to
of
Camp
these
David,
bad groups and
a
organizations
place
out of what
of
they're doing.
storied
I don't know.
significance for us
I was a little
as
younger,
Americans,
a little more
place where
naive.
we
I thought that
honor
was a thing.
The importance of American
Talking to Putin, talking to
diplomacy,
Kim
where
Jong
we
Un,
invite and receive
talking to the Taliban. Like, man, I don't know,
respected world leaders.
maybe he'll do something.
And
Maybe he'll swing his
this
little salesman
former president,
wiener and
as president,
get them to
invited them
come along into the world
to
where
Camp
other
David
people are.
because he does not again
I was
appreciate
fooled.
the role
I'll
and
admit my
responsibility
foolishness.
of the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military,
First time
fallen
go.
soldiers,
No bolo.
and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect
Oh, you know
of the
what?
United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to
What
her saying
was?
you began the
Yeah,
negotiations
thank
with
you.
the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time,
Yep.
the Taliban
Taking a
was
look.
killing our soldiers, a lot of them,
All the
with
time.
snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul was the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was
What didn't they do? What's
was
this?
terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I wanna move
and
on.
these people did
I wanna
the
move on.
worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago.
Oh, here it comes.
When she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why
pull
do
the
you
mic
believe
on
it's
us.
appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
Don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
And end it
You
right
make
there.
a big
Watch.
deal out
He
of
doesn't
something.
end it right
I couldn't
there.
care less.
He goes on.
Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words.
Aw.
I'm
I don't
asking-
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black.
Where'd
that
you
she
read
put
she
out.
was not black?
And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black. And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's...
Can't help but go crazy when I listen to that guy
we
talk.
have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families.
Yeah.
Let's remember, this is the same individual
Very true.
who
Very
took
true.
out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that. Want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other.
Yeah, we're done with that. I'm so
I meet
over
with
it.
people all the time.
Anybody that doesn't
who
agree with
tell
me, I'm ready to just sit and talk, have
Can
some
we
food.
please just have
Chill.
discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
Come on.
Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris.
Watching the news, not paying attention.
President Trump, this is
Guess
now
you
your
can't drive
third
and look at the
time.
news at the same time.
This is the most divisive
Sheesh.
presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going
Like
back many,
what she
many
just
years,
said.
when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they
See,
pled guilty.
he still is doubling
I
down.
said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person.
Yeah,
that
because
has
you don't
to
know what it's
stretch
like
back
going through the justice
years,
system as
40,
somebody like
50
that.
years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. There, she's trying to get away from Biden.
The
I
Biden
don't know the
administration has
gentleman,
tons
she
of great
says.
policies that are
She is
working out
Biden.
for lots of people.
The worst inflation
it's working out for our
we've ever
country.
had.
Amazingly.
A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad that you can't get away with
Inflation is coming down, and that wasn't even Trump's fault. I'll say that wasn't Trump's fault, Biden's fault, or anybody's fault. That
Clearly,
was the pandemic
I am not Joe
again.
Biden.
That was the fault of all
And
the
I am
companies that
certainly
rose
not
prices
Donald Trump.
and price gouged
And what
because
I
people
do
were
offer
desperate
is a new generation of
and
leadership
couldn't
for our country.
do anything but buy
One who believes
$10
in
bottles
what
of
is possible.
shampoo
One who brings
and
a sense of optimism.
whatever else,
about
$20
what we can
packs of
do
toilet paper
instead
that
of
were
always disparaging
two
the
rolls to a
American
pack.
people. I believe
That didn't actually
in
happen
what
like
we
that,
can
but
do to
you know what I mean.
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their
might
ideas,
just start a business.
their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000.
Make this YouTube a business and
for
get
young
$50,000
families
tax
for the first
deduction
year of your
and actually
child's
make a
life
cool fucking business
to
go
help
on.
you in that most critical
great.
stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling.
I'm over it.
Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
To defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
would
has
No.
a plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues?
fracking
No.
in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan
That's
is.
like
But
among the 30 plus
I
lies he
think
told.
President
There's
Trump-
no plan to
President Trump
confiscate
has
everybody's
said
guns.
something
Sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move
Get rid of
on.
assault
Vice
rifles,
President
yeah.
Harris.
ARs,
President Trump, this is now
get
your
rid of your
third time
AR-15s
running for
and
president.
your
You have long vowed to repeal
and your
replace
any
the
kind of
Affordable Care
automatic
Act,
pistol of any
also
sort.
known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it.
All he's
I had
ever
a choice
said.
to make when I was president.
We'll
Do
have
I
a plan
save
better
and
than
make
it, but
as
never
good as
has
it can
told
be?
us that.
Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the
'Cause
top
it's all you
people,
had.
they're very good people. I have
And
a
you
lot of good
actually think it
people in
worked,
this
and people liked it, so
administration.
you just let it go.
I read about the bad
That's what
ones, it's a
happened.
real
He
bad
knew
ones
people
too,
liked
so do
it.
they have
He
really
knew that
bad
if
ones.
he
The
got
difference
rid
is
of
they
it,
don't
that
get
would be
rid of it.
the
Let me just
definitely the
explain.
death sentence of his
I had a
campaign.
choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good
versus
as
Joe
it can
Biden.
be, or do I
Or
let
versus
it rot?
in his next campaign.
And I saved it. I did the right thing. But
Driving and
it's
talking
still
and confusing
never
my own
going to
self.
be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money
Oop.
and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But
Okay,
if
so you
we
can't come up with a plan
something,
for
I would
health
only
care,
change
but
it
you
if
can
we come
stop
up with
a
something
war
that's
from
better and
happening
less expensive.
while you're not
And there
president.
are concepts and options
Let's kind of
we
mentally
have to do that.
juggle that
and
real
you'll be
quick,
hearing about
how
it
that
in
works
the not
out.
too distant future.
Vice
Oops.
President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that,
Yeah.
Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the
Please.
president has made.
Yeah, get
I've
it.
made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz
She
and
owns
I
a
are
gun.
both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about
Bam.
this stuff.
Stop.
As it
Yeah,
relates to the
right?
Affordable
Raise your
Care Act,
eyebrows there, boy.
understand, Just look at the
What do you think
history
about that?
to know where people stand.
Fucking stop,
When
if you're
Donald
lying.
Trump was president, 60 times
Stop with your nonsense
he tried
lies.
to get rid of the
Donald
Affordable
Trump.
Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American
Oh,
hero. The
don't get me
late,
started
great
on
John
the
McCain, I
whole
will never forget that.
Trump in the military
walked
thing.
onto the Senate floor and said,
Served for over 10
no,
years.
you
and
don't.
I don't even
No,
want to
you
hear
don't.
that nonsense.
No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability
I don't
of
condone
insurance
violence, but
companies to
man,
deny people
if I was the
with
kind of violent
pre-existing
person,
conditions. I don't have
me
to
and
tell
him were in a
people
bar,
what
he'd
it's
get a
like. You
slap in
remember
the
what that was
mouth.
like?
For
Remember
the
when
things
an
he said about the
insurance
military, he
company
didn't
could deny
deserve anything
if
better than
a
that, more
child had
dignified than a
asthma,
slap across
if
his little
someone was a
mouth.
breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had died.
Shame on him for all the stuff he said
And
as president
thankfully,
about the military.
As I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act.
Anybody
we
can have their
allowed
opinion on the
for
military.
first
I don't
time
give a shit,
Medicare
but
to
you're
negotiate
president.
drug
You're my commander-in-chief,
prices
you
on
know.
behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said
We
he was
fight
going to
for you.
allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped
That
the
shit makes
cost
me
of
wanna cry. We
insulin
fight
at
for you, man.
$35 a month. Since I've
Whether
been
you
vice
don't-
president,
whether we like you or
have
not,
capped
Trump,
the
we
cost
fight
of
for you.
prescription medication for seniors at $2,000
fucking talk
a year.
like that, man.
And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding
Shame,
that
shame
the
on you.
value I bring to this is that
You don't deserve to
access
walk onto the
healthcare
Arlington Cemetery and
should be
honor
a
anybody,
right, and not just
let
a
alone take
privilege of
pictures
those
while you're
who
doing
can
it.
afford it. And
Fucking
The
punk.
plan has to be to
Slap it
strengthen
across
the
your mouth,
Affordable
but
Care
don't do
Act,
that, 'cause that's
not
fine.
get
We don't
rid
do
of
that.
it.
Vice
Pass this
President
pro law
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
Made a
of
mistake. Number one,
Oh,
John McCain fought
What happened?
Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it
Dude,
going.
come on.
And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare. Much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't
Because we don't
want.
need to be
People are paying
privatizing it that
privately
much.
for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you.
I don't
We
wait
have
at all.
another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to
I've
the
got spinal
environment, you say
stenosis,
that
I've
we
got
have to have
stenosis up
clean
in
air
my
and clean water. Vice President
upper
Harris,
vertebrae
you
in my
call
neck,
climate change an
lower
existential
back.
threat. The question to you both tonight is
I've
what
had a
would
surgery
you do
on my hip.
to fight climate change? And Vice President
I don't
Harris,
wait.
we'll start with you.
I need
1 minute
medication. I need what I need.
Well,
I
the
get it.
former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone
I know
who
it's not
lives
the
in a
case
state
for everybody.
who's experienced these extreme weather occurrences,
But for the
who
people that
now
need
is
it,
either being
and they're
denied
being able
home
to- are
insurance
able to
or
use
being
it, it
jacked
does
up.
work.
You ask anybody who has been
I gotta get over.
the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this
Sorry I
issue.
cut you off.
And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels.
Yeah,
We have
so high.
created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been Vice President. We have invested in clean
Drill,
energy
baby, drill. We've
to
been
the point
drilling,
that
trust
we
me.
are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by
That I'll
China.
look into. We'll see
They're
about that.
building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of
But I think that
these
has to do a
people.
lot with the
What they have
deregulation
given
Trump
to
put in
China
during
is
his
unbelievable.
term.
But we're not
So-
going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of
Well,
dollars.
he does
He's
go after
afraid
people.
to do it.
Like you, I
Between
thought.
him and his son.
What?
They get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5
He's a
million
diplomat.
from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a
I don't know. Look
crooked
up and investigate that.
administration,
Find out.
and they're
Find
selling
out.
our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to
We'll be
know
right
that
back
too.
with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue
Little mama.
after this. Constitution Center in Philadelphia,
Baby. Oh, got my
Pennsylvania.
headphones. Oh,
Here
I'm going
again,
crazy.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Oh,
Welcome back.
Okay, run away.
The time has come for closing statements. And Vice President Harris.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country.
yeah.
One that is focused on the future,
Closing statements while
and
I
the
finish
other
this
that
job.
is focused on the past, and an attempt to take
Once
us
again,
backward.
here we are, Saturday morning,
But
Super
we're not
Pals,
going back.
finishing up
And
the
I
debate
do
between
believe
Donald Trump
that
and
the
Kamala
American
Harris.
people know we all have so
The
much
first,
more in
again,
common
presidential
than
debate of
separates.
this
And
campaign.
We can chart a new way
First
forward.
A, first number
And
two.
a vision of that includes having a plan understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families.
Hey, that's like me. I'm starting one here.
In what we can do around protecting seniors.
I'm all about that.
What we can do that is about giving hardworking
I can print shirts
folks
and
a
make
break and bringing
make
down
merch.
the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together.
$50,000 tax break can pay a lot of people to help edit my videos.
In the world and ensuring
I don't
that
like
we have
editing,
the
even though I
respect
can do it.
that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Yeah.
The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first.
Please.
I intend to be a president
Preach it, Mama.
for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President
Excuse
Harris,
me.
thank you. President Trump.
What do you got? What do
So
you got,
she
Don?
just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about.
See, he waited
Why
all the way till the
hasn't
end to
she
do
done
this.
it? She should leave
See, he should have been
right now,
already
go
doing
down
this the
to
whole
that
time.
Beautiful White House, go
This should
to
have been
the
what he said
Capitol,
from
get everyone
moment
together
one.
and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it,
And then
you won't
stuck
do
to it the entire
because you
debate.
believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe
he did not.
in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they laugh. I know the leaders
That's for
very
lots
well.
of
They're
different
coming
reasons,
to
but
see
that
me.
he's not
They
lying
call
about.
me.
The
We're
people laugh at our
laughed at
country, but
all
that's not
over the
because
world.
of
They don't understand what
Biden and
happened to
Harris.
us
That's
as a
because we
nation. We're not
eat
a
shit tons
leader.
of processed
We don't
food
have
and
any
complain about not
idea
having
what's
enough of
going
it.
on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have
Piss him
wars
on about
going
being
on
bored, but yeah, we
with
can walk around
Russia
town and do
Ukraine.
but just about whatever the
We're
fuck
gonna
you want
end
to
up
do.
in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people
What?
have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all is allowing.
I mean, if anything, they
millions
took
of
our military out of
people to
Afghanistan,
come into
right?
our country. Many of them are
Like he
criminals,
said, so how
and
does
they're
that make
destroying
sense?
our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And
Make that
that is
Pokeball
our
swing.
ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir.
That's
Thank
it.
you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And that's it. Whoop. That is it for that. Let's go to sources. Let's go to window capture. Let's hide it. Boop. Okay. So a little recap on that. Like I said, I don't think either one of them did any good job on really enticing a whole lot more voters for their cause. Except the moment when Kamala mentioned the fact that Putin would be invading Poland, and that would probably affect all the Polish voters in Pennsylvania, and I think that probably definitely struck a nerve with some people. But Trump, though, I mean, just did the same thing he always does. So what Trump has done so far since his last election and since his first election was done nothing to gain new voters. That is a fact. You can just watch how support for him has gone. He hasn't gained anybody new. When the polls rise in his favor, it's just the same people polling more and being polled more, because there's nothing he said to people that would get them to vote. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing going on there. There's no substance, there's no policy, there's no come to this side because we're gonna do this for you. It is only don't go to that side because they're done this against you. And that does not get people. It doesn't get people. It might get them to not vote for Kamala Harris, but if he doesn't gain the votes that he needs back, that he lost since he became president, he's just going to lose again by default. I don't think it would have mattered if Biden still would have beat Donald Trump by default. Because if you look at it, when he won in 2016, he had all the support he needed to get there, and and he didn't even get the popular vote. So right there, he already was not the most popular to start off with. And then all the stuff he's done since then has just only made people hate him more. And if anything, based on those things, he's lost people. Whereas Biden, he did nothing to lose people. Just by default, he didn't make any massive mistakes that lost him. I mean, he might have lost a small bit of military vote on how he left Afghanistan, but that would be it. That would be the only thing you could point to that he actually lost due to that pullout. So where we're at now with them winning or losing, it's just Kamala by default at this point. And then she just gains voters every time she does something like Putin's going to take Poland, or get out of here. Trump is definitely going to stop elections from happening, or she hasn't said that, but that's the idea behind losing our democracy is, losing our ability to choose. So yes, I just don't see the voters that he gained that makes up for what he's lost. So here there was nothing different. Whoop, 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 whoop. It's me running into people. Ooh, Las Vegas. So they did nothing to really gain much. The crazy things that were said, obviously, like eating the dogs and the cats. Like before it was just cats. But this is where we need to get off Facebook. This is where Mom, Pa, 50 years or older, the kind of people that used to say don't believe everything you read on Facebook. Remember those days back in the early 2000s and in the late 90s when the internet was first getting crazy? And all your moms and dads and your grandmas and grandpas were like, don't believe all that stuff. Nope, don't do none of that. Well, what are you doing nowadays? It's exactly what's going on with you, believing all that silly nonsense. And you need to get the fuck off Facebook, Grandma and Grandpa. Because every time you see those stories and hear that stuff, you think, for some reason, now it's all true. And you hear a story like someone's eating a cat when you don't get internet culture. You guys, I'm sorry, like you knew before, you were too old, and you're still too old now to understand the internet culture. I'm gonna throw it out there. Hate my hot take if you like it, but you're too old to understand internet culture. Trolls are trolls. Half the stuff, 75% of the shit you read on Facebook, Grandma and Grandpa, are kids making stuff up and then laughing as you comment on it and believe it. That's what happens. I know a lot of people watching this, if you do watch this, you know that's what's happening. But I hope this might reach some kid that talks to his grandma and says, get the fuck off Facebook, Grandma. Go back to watching the goddamn news. And I will support saying watch the frickin' mainstream media if you have to. That's much better than watching people make comments on Facebook and thinking that because your stupid cousin or your niece, your daughter or whatever posted some nonsense about some cat being eaten, you're making it worse. Get off Facebook. Let me over. Let's finish this job up. So yeah, the animals being eaten, absolutely obnoxious. The straight up lies consistently about things that aren't happening. I don't see how you want to vote for that. Can I turn? Can I do a left turn? Watch me get a ticket. Ooh, yeah, turn green. We're good. Alright, well, let's finish up this jobby job here, get through Vegas, and we'll be done with the day. Wish I had more stuff lined up to watch. I don't. Let's see if there's anything else we can pick up. Let's see if there's anything else we can pick up. Let's look for something else we can pick up. Ooh. Well, who crashed into me? Well, get off my ass. See anything new in the politics today? Let's see. Oops, I'm in the wrong lane. Is anybody speaking anywhere? I'm trying to find something to watch real quick. Let's see what we got.
With us now, NBC's Michelle Sandor in Springfield, Ohio, former Florida Congressman Carlos Curbelo, who is an MSNBC political analyst.
Yeah. Let's just finish the job. Oop. We are not paying attention to driving. Oh no. Nope. Alright, well, let's finish this up real quick. I think that's it for the day. We'll finish this job next time. And that's it. Comment, like, subscribe, all that fun crap. Yeah, maybe we'll do this again. Maybe we'll find some more news things to cover. We'll drive some trucks, talk about it, get some knowledge about it, and make that a little thing a couple times a week. Sounds like a thing. Alright, Super Pals. Until next time, stay super. Drink some coffee. And be happy. Love who you are.